UFO disclosure, non-human intelligences, and the trajectory of mankind is all deeply interlinked with artificial intelligence. I don't think it's necessarily a coincidence that just as we stand on the brink of UFO disclosure, artificial intelligence has suddenly become such a major part of our lives. And this is only the beginning. Today, we're going to explore an extraordinary podcast episode where host Theo Vaughn interviews OpenAI CEO Sam Altman.
But in truth, I think all we know right now is that we have discovered, invented, whatever you want to call it, something extraordinary that is going to reshape the course of human history.
Dear God, man.
I don't think the discovery of artificial intelligence has only and will only shape our lives on Earth. It is my assessment that non-human intelligences universally use artificial intelligence to an enormous degree. It is a natural product of evolution. I think it is universal throughout all civilizations and is not unique to us because of the way that the universe is structured. We are biological creatures, and we're also in a universe that we can build computers in, and then we can build artificial intelligence in. No civilization, in my opinion, is going to skip over that. Artificial intelligence will lead to an enormous array of discoveries, medical discoveries, scientific, technological, and even spiritual discoveries. And we'll be getting into that later in this video. Now, really interestingly, Dr. Ben Gortzel was on the Joe Rogan Experience a few years ago, and he very eloquently defined what the singularity is, which I think the civilizations that are engaging our planet now have already gone through, and we are on the precipice of going through ourselves. It leads to a profound transformation, arguably on a messianic level. Let's play that clip.
The basic concept of the technological singularity is a point in time when technological advance occurs so rapidly that to the human mind it appears almost instantaneous.
Yes.
Like imagine 10 new Nobel Prize winning discoveries every second or something, right? So this is similar to the concept of the intelligence explosion that was posited by the mathematician I.J. Good in 1965. What I.J. Good said then, the year before I was born, was the first truly intelligent machine will be the last invention that humanity needs to make, right?
Right.
So this is an intelligence explosion is another term for basically the same thing as a technological singularity, but it's not just about AI. AI is just probably the most powerful technology driving it. I mean, there's AI, there's nanotechnology, there's femtotechnology, which will be building things from elementary particles. I mean, there's life extension, genetic engineering, mind uploading, which is like reading the mind out of your brain and putting it into a machine. You know, there's advanced energy technologies, so that all these different things are expected to advance at around the same time, and they have many ways to boost each other, right? Because the better AI you have, your AI can then invent new ways of doing nanotech and biology. But if you invent amazing new nanotech and quantum computing, that can make your AI smarter. On the other hand, if you could crack how the human brain works and genetic engineering to upgrade human intelligence, those smarter humans could then make better AIs and nanotechnology, right? So there's so many virtuous cycles among these different technologies. The more you advance in any of them, the more you're going to advance in all of them, and it's the coming together of all of these that's going to create, radical abundance and the technological singularity.
To me, this explanation by Dr. Ben Gortzel of the structure and sequence of the singularity makes so much sense to me as it is applied to non-human intelligences. One of the things that he said that really stuck out to me is how these breakthroughs strengthen and advance all the other breakthroughs. So if you crack how the human brain works, as he said, and then you can genetically engineer humans to be smarter, to have higher intelligence. Consequently, the smarter humans, can make better AI and nanotech. So it's just constantly feeding off each other. The more you advance in any of them, the more you're going to advance in all of them. It's just my personal opinion that this is why non-human intelligences are so much more advanced than us. It's not only that they've naturally, through evolution, evolved to have higher IQs. It's that they've already gone through the singularity. So they've genetically upgraded their intelligence. That leads to more advanced AI because they are able to advance it through their intellect. Then when the AI gets more advanced, they get even better at genetically engineering their own intelligence. They get better at nanotechnology. And then that leads to better AI. And it's just a runaway freight train of advancement, the likes of which we can't even comprehend. If that is true, if my model is correct that artificial intelligence is a huge component of these non-human intelligences engaging our world, then is it really so surprising that they've figured out a way to go through walls as those who report abductions relay? Is it really so surprising that UAP have the kind of propulsion system they have, that they've figured out how to crack gravity and use it as part of their propulsion? Is it really so surprising that they can engage humanity through a fine-tuning which allows us to be aware of their presence, but precludes us in the public domain getting any smoking gun evidence in our hands, while simultaneously they facilitate intelligence communities, militaries, governments, and aerospace corporations getting that smoking gun evidence? And so I think artificial intelligence plays a central role in non-human intelligence civilizations engaging our world. And it's why it's the main reason they're so advanced. It's the primary reason they're so advanced. Normal everyday evolution is not the primary reason they're so advanced. And I think that when you get to their stage, spirituality and technology begin to integrate. You begin to be able to manipulate reality in ways we can only dream of. And as a result of that, you could be biological creatures, but come off as interdimensional entities. And I'm not saying all of the phenomena is biological creatures. I don't really know. But I think that we forget how advanced they would become if they went past the singularity. As Dr. Ben Gortzel outlines, they would be so advanced that their ways would be indistinguishable from what we might perceive as beings that are stemming from an interdimensional place. And maybe they're able to traverse interdimensional realities based upon the discoveries they made through the singularity virtuous cycles over thousands, tens of thousands, if not millions of years. And so maybe that's part of why, as I see it, they're choosing to lead us to disclosure at this time because maybe they feel like they can help us traverse this period with artificial intelligence in a useful way. Now, obviously, that's an extremely optimistic perspective, but it's plausible. It doesn't mean they have no interests that interfere with our interests. It just means that they may see this moment in time as extremely ripe to engage us openly because we have just entered their world, the very beginning stages of their world, albeit. First, it was the nuclear breakthrough in the 40s. Now it's artificial intelligence. And then the next phase, in my opinion, is the combination or integration of science and spirituality. Higher degrees of manipulating reality, the way that they can do it.
A supercomputer is something that has all knowledge, which you think will get there.
I do.
You do.
Or, I mean, all knowledge is a hard thing to say. I think it will have vast, vast amounts.
Will it be able to tell us about God or anything, do you think?
I'm super curious about that. I think it will be able to help us answer questions about the nature of the universe that we currently can't. And I feel very confused and very unsatisfied with our current answers. And there is clearly, to me at least, something going on well beyond our current capability to understand. And I would love to know what that is.
Do you think it could help us learn more?
Yes.
I wonder if God has a chat GPT or whatever, or just wonder, he has the first one or whatever. But yeah, I'm just so curious, like, how would that work?
So as part of my alien AI hypothesis, I posit that disclosure is related to the thinning of the veil, as I see it. What I mean by the thinning of the veil is a diminishment in separation from humanity and the divine. And the reason I see disclosure falling under that umbrella is because someone could be born into this world, live their entire life, die in this world, believing they are separate from everybody else. Not just believing they are separate from the divine, but even believing there is no divine or God. Whatever word you like best. It doesn't really matter. Disclosure changes all that. Disclosure changes that dynamic. Maybe not immediately, but within proximity of disclosure. And it doesn't matter that there were that there were societies within our world before the Enlightenment that believe in spirituality and all that, because that's still incredibly distinctly different from what the post-disclosure world is going to be like. Because the post-disclosure world basically makes the Enlightenment and spirituality meld into one. We retain our scientific ways to learn about the universe, but science begins to reveal there's more to the universe than the Enlightenment conveyed or concluded. That's what makes the post-disclosure world different than any other period in human history prior to it. It doesn't matter that we were very superstitious and spiritual 5,000 years ago. That was superstition and spirituality by itself, without science proving it. In a post-disclosure world, it is, in my model, we will start entering a new phase of human evolution where science and spirituality become integrated. In other words, science proves there's more to this world than we thought. That consciousness is not tethered to the biological brain and dies when the biological brain dies, but that consciousness transcends the biological brain. That is the post-disclosure world. And that is why I think our relationship with the phenomenon will be different after disclosure. Maybe not immediately, but but within proximity, because we will no longer need to be so distant from this truth. Prior to disclosure, our incarnations, we needed that challenge for spiritual evolution. But we've been through enough cycles of rebirth within the framework of separation that we no longer need that path anymore. We no longer need those tests anymore. We're starting a new phase of reality. And when UFO confirmation dawns, we'll know there's more to reality just by looking at UFO history, because you can't separate all the various stories associated with UFOs, whether it's telepathy or levitation, beings going through walls, demonstrations that suggest there's more to reality than just the physical world. So disclosure is about a thinning of the veil. And that's just a metaphor for me saying that deeper truths will not elude us the way they did before disclosure, because humanity no longer needs those experiences of separation to the degree we had it. So a post-disclosure world is about a thinning of the veil. And so in that line of thinking, it makes sense that maybe artificial intelligence will lead to spiritual discoveries. It may give scientists a way to prove that consciousness is not tethered to the physical brain. It may give scientists ways to prove other hypotheses that reveal that the universe is not entirely or exclusively physical. That is a thinning of the veil, because it connects us with the truth of nature that prior to disclosure was only hypothetical, but in a post-disclosure world, it will become a scientific fact. And we will have the luxury and the asset of knowing that we go on even after we die, which will make life easier in many respects, for obvious reasons. Maybe it will make life harder in some ways. I don't know. But I see disclosure as a period of time that is a symbol of a new phase of human experience, not just merely learning that we're not alone. I think it's much more complicated than that.
Someone asked me the other day, like, how long is it until you can make like a AI CEO for OpenAI? And I was like, probably not that long. And they were like, well, aren't you really sad about that? And I was like, no, I think it's awesome. I'm for sure going to figure out something else to do. I'm excited to do that. Like, I think that's great.
Right.
By the sweat of your brow, you will eat your food. But what happens when artificial intelligence gets so advanced, which from what I've seen, all the thinkers believe that it will. No one doesn't think it won't. Where you don't have to work anymore. Where work becomes a choice. And that path that I think we're moving into, I didn't say it would happen immediately, but that path we're moving into in a post-disclosure world where the veil thins is the perfect time for us no longer to need to work so hard to have what we need, because we're going to need time to explore deeper layers of reality. Those deeper layers of reality will become more central to our life than they were before disclosure, before we had the integration of science and spirituality. So post-disclosure is a new phase of human evolution. We don't need to be so distant from the divine anymore. We don't need it to be so easy anymore to believe there is no divine, or that the world is just purely physical, maybe even meaningless, and that consciousness is merely a byproduct of the biological brain. We don't need to deal with that challenge anymore the way that we did. We've done enough cycles in the world with that challenge that everything that was needed to be accomplished and to evolve us We've met that quota. And so in the post-disclosure world, science and spirituality integrates. And then the toiling of the soil becomes less necessary, because even toiling of the soil is its own kind of challenge that humanity has had to deal with for eons. It had its place, it had its purpose. It helped to build us spiritually, intellectually. But after enough cycles in this world where we have to toil so much, we don't need to anymore. And the new obsession, necessity, drive is to learn about the true nature of reality through spiritual practice, prayer, meditation, science. Because science is no longer separate from all of that. Once the veil thins and our proximity to the divine in this world becomes less of a distance.
Okay,
You know?
so right now, I can write software, maybe you can't. And I have a little advantage if I want to go build some technological thing. Very soon, you can make any piece of software you want. Because you just ask an AI in English, you say, I got an idea for an app, make me this thing. And the whole thing just happens. So that's a win for you. Maybe it's a little bit of a loss for me. I think it's kind of cool for the whole world.
Yeah.
But like, this is going to be a technology that anybody can use. You can just like, with natural language, you can say, this is what I want. And it goes off and writes the code for you, debugs it for you, deploys it for you.
And then you can say, how do I use what I just created?
Yeah. But if you have a great idea, AI will just make it happen for you. And this is a new thing. Like this, I think this will make technology the most accessible it ever has been.
So what Sam Altman just outlined is part of the tetrad of the new world. Let me go over the first three parts of the tetrad that we've already covered very quickly. So number one is, in a post-disclosure world, science and spirituality integrates. For example, you're no longer going to be able to be born into the world believing there's no higher power or that consciousness is arising from biological processes. Two, we're no longer going to need to toil for abundance through artificial intelligence and then into the full transition into the singularity. Abundance is going to be just natural. Everyone will be able to live like they're wealthy, and work is optional. The third part of the tetrad of the new world is that the world becomes equalized, which is what Sam Altman was covering just now in that previous clip. He was talking about how you could tell AI exactly what kind of software you want to create through language, right? No coding necessary. It would create it, it would debug it, and it would deploy it. And we've already seen this kind of equalization occur even prior to advanced artificial intelligence. We've seen it with YouTube, people creating movies and talk shows and all kinds of stuff like that without needing, in news shows, without needing network television, right? You don't need a contract with a cable company. We've seen it with music, people tinkering on their computer, making full albums, no longer requiring record deals. We've even seen it with books, right? People writing their own books and self-publishing. So the equalization of the world has already begun. But of course, with artificial intelligence, it just goes to a ridiculous level. And that makes sense, right? Because in this new age of spirituality and science, we don't need the spiritual lessons we've gained from so much competition anymore. Competition has served its purpose over many reincarnations. We kind of put that behind us to a large extent once we traverse into a post-disclosure world. But there's one other part of the tetrad that we haven't even suggested or mentioned yet, and that is the guardrails for psychic capacity are lowered. I suspect they will be lowered in two ways. One, the divine will lower them artificially. And two, they will be lowered naturally. I was just speaking to ChatGPT, how appropriate. I was speaking to ChatGPT explaining how I wanted to describe this new phase. I even mentioned Rupert Sheldrake's morphic resonance theory. I asked it to intertwine his theory into my discourse, and it helped me to relay my thoughts, frankly, better than I can. And so using ChatGPT in this video is kind of funny. I guess ultimately, fate is not without a sense of irony. Now let me read this fourth aspect of the new world, or the tetrad of the next or new world. And I quote, "In a post-disclosure world, once humanity collectively acknowledges the reality of non-human intelligences, a profound psychological and cultural shift would occur. Freed from the old taboos that once policed inquiry into consciousness and the unseen, human attention would naturally turn toward the study of psychic reality. According to Rupert Sheldrake's morphic resonance theory, habits of nature and mind are reinforced by repeated patterns of experience across individuals and generations. As billions of people begin to contemplate and experiment with telepathy, intuition, and consciousness itself, not as superstition, but as legitimate frontiers of research, the morphic field surrounding these capacities could strengthen. Over time, this global participation could reshape the very field that defines what is normal for the human mind. The more we engage with psychic phenomena in earnest, the more accessible such abilities could become, as the collective resonance amplifies and stabilizes new patterns of perception. In this view, disclosure doesn't just reveal what's out there. It catalyzes a transformation of what's in here, expanding the morphic potential of the species to perceive, connect, and co-create realities in ways previously reserved for myth." Now, if you look into the historical record, there are reports of sages and holy people and monks who have developed these abilities. Talking to the dead, healing people of sickness, healing themselves, precognitive capacities, being in one place and another place simultaneously. I forget what the term for that is. I know Pasolka talks about that. And in my model, instead of it being reserved for these sages and saints and monks and just people who have a strong genetic predisposition to it, it will become more universal as we move deeper into the post-disclosure world for a variety of reasons. Maybe part of it's just the divine itself artificially lowering the guardrail, right? Because these capacities no longer need to be curtailed the way they were in a pre-disclosure world, because it's no longer essential for our evolution and our growth for it to be so easy to believe that there is no God or that consciousness derives exclusively from biological processes. When you wipe that away, God is like, or evolution, however you want to see it, is like, well, we're done with that. So there's no constructive reason anymore to curtail people's psychic abilities. That it's a very natural part of being human, but it was curtailed for eons because we needed that struggle, those challenges to evolve. And now, once enough cycles of reincarnation in that environment has occurred, we no longer need that. In a post-disclosure world, that begins to diminish those guardrails. And then, if you want to get even weirder, which you probably were thinking, how are you going to get even weirder? No, we are going to get even weirder. We are going to get even weirder. Through this evolution, through the lowering of the guardrails, now what happens? Well, now we have more open communication to the ecology of beings that are surrounding us all the time. Whatever that may entail. We have a bigger connection to these other creatures or consciousnesses than we did before. Because again, there's no need anymore for the structure of our experience to make it so easy and so easy to believe we're alone that we're separate and maybe there's no divine, and so hard to believe the converse, right? We don't need that dynamic anymore. So in a post-disclosure world, things will get real weird because we don't need that dynamic anymore. That's kind of the gist. We'll leave it there, because if we get any more weirder, right, a Sasquatch might spontaneously emerge behind me, and I hear they smell really bad. So I don't really want to, Please do not forget to subscribe. If you'd like to support this channel, you could become a patron, you could become a YouTube member, you could give me a one-time donation. All those potentialities can be accessed in the description box below, or you can just slap a like on this bad boy, and I'll appreciate it so much. Thank you so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.